Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Zenitsu, and you're listening to the Digi Talks podcast, the show that covers various topics from news to meta developments and everything in between for the fine folks who love the Digimon trading card game. Just as a quick reminder, I do try to stream this live over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, and it also tends to get uploaded as a YouTube video under the YouTube channel of Zenitsu, on top of obviously being on various podcasting platforms like Spotify for your viewing and listening pleasure. So please feel free to leave a rating, like, follow, subscribe, review, whatever, depending on the social media platform that you're listening on. Not necessarily social media platform, but if you want to share them on there, by all means do so. It really does help support the podcast. Today I am back with Jay Stewart, and we do have a little bit of news to go over, some meta reports, and obviously the main topic is going to be centered around kind of just the holiday festivities, because Bandai is doing a Singleton holiday event. So it's the other name for Singleton is Highlander. Pick whichever name you want. But we're going to kind of go through and discuss what we think of the format, just the onset of it, as well as kind of like help you figure out some ideas for it, because it is just a different approach to deck building and deck design, and it's going to be definitely a different experience than what people are going to be used to, especially in this, I'm going to put it loosely and lightly, rough spot where the current meta game is. And it's really interesting to see, like, I don't know, it's weird kind of just feeling like you're the right man. Not like I'm in the right, but I told you so type thing. Because I've been seeing a lot more discourse recently, both in other content creators and online, about just how actually this meta is not super healthy. So I guess before we start getting into the meta reports and kind of discuss that a little bit, we have the question of the week. So again, feel free, anyone down in the comments or in the chat, feel free to answer this question. So the question of the week is, what card are you most excited for when it comes to the limited card set that's going to be coming out mid-December? So, Jay Stewart, what card are you the most excited about?
So I think for me, the card I'm most excited for is probably going to be the Cybergemon Ace. This is the first time Black finally gets a level 5 Ace. All the other cards had gotten one, but except for Black, so to say. And this is also one of the first times we're actually seeing the Ace cards actually have an Inheribles too. And the Cybergemon has a really, and I mean really powerful D-Digivolve effect. There's, like we've discussed before, D-Digivolve is like one of the best removals out there, so to say. And the fact that we even have like the Justimon deck that's getting support for it later on, it's also Cyborg, so if you really wanted to, you could theoretically throw it in Machine Dramon deck. This is also good for the Black Hybrids deck too as well.
Yeah, Cybergermon definitely is a good one, considering, like, it's really awkward thinking that level 5s haven't had, like, I'm talking about, like, Black level 5s. There is no, Black level 5 Ace Digimon. So the fact that this is where you're finally getting one is a little on the awkward side, but I could see why a lot of people would be super excited for that card more specifically compared to some of the others. As far as what I'm excited for, oh, that's really hard, because I like the reprints. I always like reprints because accessibility is something I always love when it comes to card games. I like just the idea that all of the new cards you're getting like 1 to 2 copies of per booster box. So that way you could actually get the cards to play with. So good on them for actually doing that. I don't know how bad the reprint pull rate is going to be in terms of what gets like pulled or not. Obviously Shine Greymon is going to be what a lot of people are hunting for, but in terms of like, I'll just stick to new cards. In terms of new cards, I am a very filthy dirty blue player, so Gabu Bond getting an ace is something that I'm kind of excited for, because it just seems like it would be a really fun and interesting card to use. knowing that there's more level 7 like ace bait traps to actually try to interact with the opponent, assuming the opponent doesn't have a way to kill or de-digivolve your Digimon. So I just like the prospect of what the card can do. Um,
Yeah,
and I
because I know
guess
there
that
is.
yeah, and I guess that extends to Agumon as well, but like I'm always a blue player.
Yeah, because I know with like the Agumon deck, I mean, we did have that white secret rare Greymon. I think that was in BT17 that could have its name treated as Agumon, so that could throw some people off. Because the other thing that's important about the bond of friendship and bravery is they have the black text bars that say the can Evo on top of a Gabumon or Agumon, so to say.
Yeah,
So
you
you
don't
could
need the
leave a
tamer.
yeah, it's like you could leave a level 3 out there, and if your opponent doesn't answer it, they'll just get hit with some unexpected heat, so to say. But even like the blue decks, like the bond of friendship, like this is a really good tool for the blue decks that have that galaxy engine they're using with like Hexablow and then Mirage as the top end and everything, because that's going to be a lot of sources for that bond of bravery or bond of friendship to just utilize.
Yeah, so there's obviously a lot of good application between the bonds and just in any of the cards for the most part. Like they're all pretty fire. I know a lot of people are going to be looking more so towards the scrambles and the gem boosts is probably what I'll call them. I don't know what other people are calling them, but they're gem boosts to me.
I think people
And
are just calling them dual color memory boost, but
yeah,
gem boost kind of makes sense because they're after like minerals and whatnot.
yeah, mine
I
is
think,
grape. Grape's a fruit, so
yeah,
but outside of that, yeah, like the scrambles. So like I've been having this like thought process on these types of staple cards. Most of the time, I kind of just don't like their existence. So scrambles, I'm a little on the wary side because they do have some very good applications, but very niche like breakages in the game, which have previously been pointed out. So if anyone's curious on those, feel free to look them up. The main one obviously is going to be anything that can happen to make you digivolve before the start of your turn with a memory setter. So like that's where you do have like some really awkward and weird case uses where you could just net more memory and more like playability than what the card was initially designed and intended for. Which is why I always have a huge problem with the generic cards, is because they're so generic that they borderline are like demanding deck space because of the problems that they're trying to solve if they're solving a problem. So I do like the dual color memory boosts or the gem boosts because the problem that they're trying to solve is consistency in decks that have not true multicolored Digimon but are multicolored decks. So that's obviously good. They're obviously statted with all of the other memory boosts, which is exactly where they should be. That's not game breaking. Purple Scrambles function similarly to the Digivolution plugin S, so that's not entirely game breaking. And the delay effect is supposed to be a catch up or comeback mechanic, even though most of the time the Digimon won't have rush. Just the fact that you get to keep something on the field is very nice, or return something to the top of your deck so you could actually use it again. So you can try to recur what you need. So I like the ideas of them. It's just the memory boosts are fine. It's more the scrambles I'm just worried about.
yeah, because I know some people are already talking about how good the purple one is with the Rush Guilmon. Like, there's some people that are talking about like, oh, I'll just run the Rush Guilmon as a one-of tech to work with the scrambles for that start of turn. But I think there were some people talking about even how the yellow one's like really good, but I don't know how for sure. I haven't seen like how the whole brokenness thing is.
Well,
But I
so
think someone else said
black,
it.
yeah, black has some really interesting case uses because of like Numemon, because it's just asking for a 2K DP Digimon. So you could
Oh,
have, yeah, so you could have low level, like mid level Digimon with low amounts of DP be impacted as a potential target to grab with scrambles.
See, I did not know that. But I know something else. Jesus, I kind of lost what my train of thought was there, actually. Sorry.
You're good.
Give me a sec here, and I'm sure it'll come back.
Yeah, but
Oh, sorry.
purple, like, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. So I know the other thing that's like really important about the whole scrambles is now the timing of it, because technically the scrambles trigger before you even draw for your turn or even push out of raising or even hatch out of raising. So I know like there's going to be some weird timing things that people are either going to miss, or someone might just get really hard about and everything, go, hey, you missed timing for this, so you can't do that.
Yeah, timing's always a important thing you got to keep in track of, because it does have a relatively unusual timing in which it triggers. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. But yeah, so the special limited set, original name, I know, that's coming out mid-December, and feel free to look forward to that, as it's just gonna shake up the meta a tiny bit with a couple of new cards being added into the mix, as well as some really good reprints, assuming you could actually pull the reprints that you want. So cool that that's happening. And as far as the meta goes, we do have a couple of events. I'm going to try to breeze over them as quickly as I can, because this meta is just not very interesting. It's exactly the same meta as what we've been seeing for quite a while. So literally nothing has really changed or developed in terms of where the direction of it is going. So we have 3 events, 2 big events, not North America based, but still big events, and then we have 1 store regional. So as far as the first one, that's going to be the organized play, November Ultimate Cup. That's you could look at Eggman events as per usual. That's where I pull the vast majority of my data from. As far as the top 16 archetype breakdown, we have 4 Magnamon X's, 3 Leviamon X's, 3 purple hybrids, 2 mirages, 2 3 great angels, 1 rapid X, and 1 ancient gray. So literally all of these decks we have seen before. So there's no real surprise. The deck that won was a Mirage. It was a pure Mirage, not a Galaxy Mirage. Galaxy Mirage came in 5th. And then the only other interesting decks is like what Purple Hybrids is doing, just because there's like a ton of variants. So it looks like this is a Merva build. So there's a Merva build that won. Then there is, let's see, another Merva build. So we got 2 on the Merva builds. And let's see if 3 for 3 is Merva. That is indeed another Merva. So it looks like everyone in this event really liked Merva purple hybrids. Not saying that's not bad. It's just I personally like the yellow toolboxiness more than just Merva. But that's just me personally. And I also like the cuteness of Mother Control utilizing Beelstar and the package as well. I think that's a really fun variant. Like, Purple Hybrids just has a lot of, like, interesting ways to build it. So, it's always important to kind of, like, check and see which variant is doing well. And the 3 main ones, obviously, are the Merva, the Toolbox, like the yellow Toolbox, and then the Beelstar. So, cool on that. Then the other deck to kind of look at is Terriermon, because we haven't really seen it in a while. Let's just to take a look to see if there's any changes, and there's no real changes. So again, just nothing really is developing or happening with this entire meta, because the vast majority of it is exactly what we've seen. I guess I'll just touch on Ancient Gray, even though it's like a highly known deck at this point, because Ancient Gray OTK is back. It's interesting that this build isn't running Omnimon. I 100% would, but it looks like they're trying to go more so just for big damage and trying to just jab at the opponent as hard as they can. And yeah, that's kind of it. So I personally like the Omnimon in this because you could literally win turn 2 if you have the right hand. But, that's just an OTK deck. Getting faster and more consistent. So it is what it is. Then let's look at No More Heroes. Or just not No More Heroes, just No Heroes. Another Ultimate Cup. This one had the top 16 archetype breakdown is as follows. 4 Magnamon X's, 2 Fens, 2 Imperials, 2 purple hybrids, 2 red hybrids, which are ancient decks. Then we have 2 Mirages, 1 Levia, 1 3 Great Angels. So again, you can see this reoccurring pattern of literally nothing is changing. This is just what the meta is. And that's it. Nothing really special. One thing to note, both of the Imperials are on the armor variant. This was a Discovery Japan made that Dan Vang has started to popularize because he started doing really well with it. So variants are definitely starting to happen more and more within the TCG. And when it comes to the purple hybrids, we have another Merva. And where's the last purple hybrid? There you are. And this is another Merva. So it looks like we are in the Merva hype train. Just wanted to double check. Yeah, we're in the Merva hype train with how Purple Hybrids is being ran. I think people just like the Merva variant because it tries to actually end the game relatively quickly. Because you just try to use Merva as a win con to line up a whole bunch of attackers and just go absolutely ballistic. So it does have its strengths and weaknesses, mind you. And then I just like checking on the Ancient Grey decks, see if there's anything different. This one's using Shine Greymon Rune mode. That's something different. Just because you do have the purple BT17 version of Ancient Grey that you could use with Rune mode to try to just stall the opponent out. So that way you're buying yourself that extra turn that way. And then this is also running the Floodgates. So interesting, cool tech. That's why we like seeing them sometimes, but the vast majority of these decks are literally doing nothing different. As far as what won this event, that was Magnamon X. Big uninteractable blocker is good, especially if the opponent can't out it, which most decks can't. Then when it comes to the store regionals, this was Midgar store regionals, 32 players, so on the smaller side. Then the top 8 archetype breakdown is as follows. Keep in mind, you're going to see a little bit of different decks just because less people means less, variety in terms of consistent opponents playing good decks. So more casual decks can tend to crop up. So we have 1 Tyrant, 1 Imperial, 1 Magnamon X, 1 Red Hybrids, 1 Leviamon, 1 3 Great Angels, 1 Gallantmon, and 1 Lord Knight X. So what won this event was Tyrant. Tyrant literally is doing nothing we haven't seen before. It's just Tyrant using the promo. That's about it. That was the only real change. Oh, and they're also splashing in a little bit of the Shoto cards. So they're running like a Pateramon just for the on-play to suspend. Not a bad card. It's the promo one. And then the other deck that people are probably curious on looking at is Gallantmon. Because Gallantmon in this day and age, it's like, really? So this is definitely a Gallantmon pile. It's more focused on BT17 and BT12 with a little bit of BT13. So it's a 2-2 split on all 3 of those Gallants. Then it's a 1-1 split on the old Crimson mode versus Ace. And as far as the rest of it, it is just Gallant stuff. They're actually focused more so on DP boosting and increasing the range of their effects compared to what we've seen in the past. So it's interesting that they're just leaning on literally everything that Gallant has been doing. So it's definitely an interesting list, and I wouldn't recommend taking it to regionals, but for like a store event, it's probably a fun deck to play around with. So cool on that. And yeah, that's for the most part the meta report. Oh, I do have a tiny bit of metadata for where the format currently is at. So if anyone's actually curious, I know I've been yapping for a lot. I'll stop in a second, I promise, and we could actually get into the news. So if anyone's curious, right now, out of the 4 big events that we've had, Purple Hybrids is the number 1 deck. It's not a surprise. It has lots of variations, and the Velgar engine is kind of just cracked for anything that wants to mill as quickly as possible, and while also removing things, while also trying to stop the opponent from digivolving, because if they don't have a name-based evolution, they're kind of just boned. So that's taking up 19% of the current meta. Then Magnamon X is the next best deck at 14%, tied with Mirage at 14%. Imperial is currently at 9, tied with the Ancient Grey Leviamon, also at 9%. Then we have Fenrir Lugamon at 8%, and Lord Nightmon X at 6%. So if you add up all those percentages, we get 88%. So 88% of the entire meta is condensed down into these 8 decks. I think that's pretty sad. And that's not necessarily a good look. I know people have made the argument, oh, but look at the diversity. We have 8 decks that we could choose from. The only problem is the diversity comes at the cost of toxicity, as the game has devolved into something highly uninteractive. I'm trying to piece basically a secondary script on putting all of my thoughts about this later, but this is kind of just a little prelude to that. So feel free to follow my YouTube channel to be informed when that video potentially gets made or uploaded. But yeah, so there's a lot of growing discontent with the current state of the metagame, and I really hope Bandai does something to fix and change that. And Bandai actually is going to be announcing something on, what is it, the 5th? Yeah, or...
The 5th?
Yeah, the 5th.
I think it's the 5th for them, but it's... Or maybe it's the 5th for us, but the 6th for them.
Yeah, 5th/6th, because time zones are fun. So yeah, there's going to be an announcement soon. So that's going to be a very interesting thing to see what they're going to be talking about. Do you actually know what they're going to be talking about, Jay Stewart?
From what I saw, there wasn't really a lot of details that they threw out there. It was talking about the unification of Digimon, but it's really hard to say because, not trying to be negative about this announcement or anything, but anytime we've seen a Bandai Digimon announcement, like kind of live stream and everything, it's always kind of been of a letdown. We've never heard the news we've wanted to hear, so to say. There's sometimes we get some things, like take for instance 2 years ago they had a live stream, and all they announced was like the Digimon movie for the season 2 Tamers, and like they had like the drawing of like Louie looking up at Uko and everything. I think that was the only thing that we got from it, and it's hard to say because really they never really announced anything before in the past, so I don't know how I feel about this one, honestly.
Yeah,
they could just be talking about product releases, when BT21 is supposed to be released exactly, like the day, because we do know BT21 is supposed to be the very first set that we all are on the same page for.
technically BT20 is, but BT21 will be the first simultaneously released set. So I get where you're coming from. But yeah, all they really said on their Facebook page was, hey, we're announcing an announcement. I hate it when they do that. We're going to announce that we're announcing an announcement for an announcement of an announcement. Yeah, it's always silly and goofy. But all they kind of just alluded to was, yeah, like the tournament organized on how it's going to be like supposedly going to run next year, and then product release schedule, and that was basically it. So I'm really hoping they talk more about some other things that they've been working on. Like, it would be cool to get some more Liberator announcements. I think the webcomic is actually pretty decent. Slow, but decent. And I have not even attempted to read the light novel. And Yeah, and I think that it's just a cool thing that they're attempting to do. We'll see where that goes and how far it'll take them. But some sort of Liberator announcement would be cool. Obviously, the big one that a lot of people are wanting is a ban and restriction announcement that they're not hinting at all. And I think the game is very much in desperate need of a ban and restriction announcement. You could literally watch like a whole bunch of different YouTubers, and you'll see some of them just slide it in that they are literally like me, just in complete discontent for the meta and are hoping that we get some sort of glimmer of hope that will help fix and alleviate the issues with the game. Because, as we kind of mentioned last week, there's a lot of cards that need to get banned and limited in order for the game to start, I'll say, healing from the damage that was done last year by the previous designer. And this new one's so far done one cracknut job. I don't know the wording I was going for. But they've been doing or crackerjack. There we go. They've been doing a really good crackerjack of a job to try to not continuously power spike the game, because everything that we've had for the most part outside of like literally Lord Nightmon and the hybrids have been absolutely hot garbage in terms of for where the current state of the game is, but very interesting and unique and fun. And it's sad that those can't be competitive because of where the current state of the game is. So that's my only issue.
Yeah, because I think what they could potentially announce is they could make an announcement of, hey, on this date, this is when we're going to make a banner restriction list, because I highly doubt they're going to announce a banner restriction list before 2.5.
They've done it before.
They have done it before, yes. But, like, it's possible they could do it during 2.5 and everything after Worlds is over and everything. So, because by then we should theoretically be on the same set as everybody else. Maybe, like, EX8. I don't know. It's confusing because I think EX8 comes out in January, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so, EX8 literally is like the week
page
after Nationals.
Yeah, so we should be on the same page then as everybody else then, if that's the case.
No, because we get EX8 before our BT, the other half of BT 19 and 20. So we're technically still missing cards from being on parallel with where Japan is. But if they were to announce any like bans and restrictions, it would probably be of the sets up to BT 19. So we probably wouldn't see any EX8 limitations, and we already got the broken half of BT19, so like BT19 probably is on the table, and it wouldn't really impact the sales of the Special Booster 2.5 depending on what they limit. But like literally, I don't necessarily think anything from the other half of BT19 outside of Taumon Ace really needs to get hit. And Taumon Ace might not even need to get hit depending on some other things. Like, there's a lot of different factors in play.
Yeah. Because I know there are some people that say, oh, it's diverse and everything, but it's like, yeah, but if you look at the color spectrum, if you even look at the gameplay style of some of these decks too, because, I mean, out of those 8 decks you said and everything, how many of them are OTK, like rush to just beat down your opponent as fast as literal possible?
Let's see. You have Mirage, Ancient Grey, and Fenry Lucamon that are dedicated OTK decks. So you have 3 out of 8 are dedicated OTK decks. Just pick your color and pick your flavor. It really doesn't matter. They all try to win by like turn 3 or 4. And they all can win by as early as turn 3 or 4. And then when it comes to the other color breakdown, so we have purple hybrids, that's purple. Magnamon, that's blue. Mirage, that's blue. Imperial, that's blue. Ancient Grey is red. Then Leviamon, Fenry, and Lord Knight are all purple. So literally it's just all purple and blue, with Ancient Grey being the only red deck, and it's kind of half purple.
Yeah, but it's like, and I don't even remember, because what was it, like BT17? I think it was roughly still 8, but I feel like it was there was like still like some other cards, so you could almost consider something outside of 8 deck, I guess, being meta reliable.
No, I have that data too. I actually was working on scripting my EX7 or my EX7 meta wrap up. So if you want EX7, the meta that we just came off of, it was still mostly the exact same stuff that we've seen. So it was Imperial, Mirage, Ancient Guru, Leviathan, Fenrir, 7 Great Demon Lords, and Magnamon X. And then I think the 8th one was Dexter Ugora. So it's still all purple and blue with maybe a splash of a, a third color. And in last meta's perspective, the third color would technically be black.
But yeah, yeah, it's I don't know, it just because it a lot of those decks you said they are still constantly popping up too and everything. So it's like, and I don't know how far back you want to look at like seeing how good some of those decks were. Like, oh, Imperial's been good since BT16. Oh, Mirage has been good since BT13. Like just a lot of decks that just keep reoccurring, re-popping up because there's nothing that could really out there that replaces them, so to say. No new blue deck that does whatever it wants to better than what Mirage can, so to say.
Exactly. I think like that's kind of the problem where we've reached such an apex with the current power level of the decks that are actually meta competitive that it's blocking the majority of the rest of the game out, and that's kind of like my issue with it is like we've seen good formats like post ban and restriction BT15 where literally almost anything was viable, and that's cool. I like that because that means that yes, it's harder for a hardcore competitive player to prepare for an event, but that means that they could just pick their favorite deck, and as long as they're a good pilot, they should be able to do well. And like I would rather have that trade-off than something hyper predictable and right now incredibly stale, considering the meta really has not changed since BT16. We've had a couple of new decks kind of just prop in and take a couple of places from some of the older decks, but for the most part, since like BT17, the meta literally has not changed. Even 2.0, outside of literally the inclusion of purple hybrids, the meta has not even changed. And that's incredibly sad that new cards aren't playable and new decks aren't playable because the apex power level of what we currently have is just that high.
Yeah, because you can even look at Lord Naimon and everything. In 2.0, they literally released Lord Naimon with the Dark Knight package and all the other Black Knight support that it would need. They're like, okay, here you go, play Naimon, black base people, and everyone goes, yeah, no, I'm instead use every single good purple card from what is that? Box set 3 or something like that.
It's EX5.
Well, yeah, EX5, but it's like what is the it's like the little cube or pentagon looking thing. I don't know why I can't think what it's called. The
I don't know.
the block the
Oh,
block
block
3.
3? Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. It's yeah, block 3 was a ginormous mistake, and I've been on record saying it before, and I'll say it again. Like, DigiPanda had a great video breaking down the problems with purple. He's probably going to be doing one for blue, knowing him. I've been kind of like talking to him on the side, not going to divulge any information that we've been saying, but I'll just spoil that he's not exactly happy with the game either. I've been watching a little bit of Mario's videos because me and Mario have some very similar opinions. Not that I'm looking for an echo chamber, but I sometimes like to keep my pulse on where certain people are, and like more so the people I have respect for. And Mario's not super happy with the game either. Like, there's just this growing frustration with the game that makes it very hard to trust Bandai's going to do the right thing. And that's what this announcement, like, I know I shouldn't be putting any weight on them fixing the game from this announcement, but I just want some good news on the game will actually be good by unification, because if that announcement sucks and unification, like come BT21, they don't fix anything, I don't know if I can play anything past the simulator. Like, my competitive nature is telling me I honestly shouldn't bother and waste my time. Like, I'll play in a couple of events if the pricing, like the individual pricing is good enough. But in terms of like trying to be this tournament grinder, I honestly think this trip to Orlando is going to be the last time I go to a Digimon Nationals.
Yeah, because I know there's some people that aren't too crazy happy with like the match, so to say. I've also been listening to Mario and everything too, and I know he was talking about his frustration about the playmats and everything. I mean, to me, it's like the playmats aren't necessarily anything that's ever encouraged me to want to try to go to Nats. It's always been like the participation, the winning cards, and everything. And I saw the whole Vmon Ulforce line that they were doing, like the one from BT11. Now I know it's not really a good deck anymore, but I still love the style of those cards, and I even love how they actually change all the text to be like the Digimon language too and everything. So to me, it's just like something like that small is like, oh, I will, if I ever could, I would love to get something like that.
Yeah, no, those scream trophy cards, and they're nice cards. I really like the look and design of them as well. But kind of like going back to Mario's video and his gripes on the pricing, I do think that this year, especially compared to last year, the pricing is fairly lackluster. Um, it's not the greatest pricing in the world, and honestly, I was very much debating about just not going, saving myself the $700+ to make it out to Florida. But I figured, hey, if this is probably the last, like, if they don't fix the game and this is my last time, do I really want to deny myself going to play Digimon in person at a big event, seeing other, like, people that, one, would be cool seeing me, or two, that I know would be there, not necessarily for Digimon, but for other things as well. And I just figured it would be a good, like, celebration, because that's what Cardfest is supposed to be.
Yeah,
So,
because I know like I could go as a spectator, but I don't want to go as a spectator. I kind of want to try to go as a person who can participate in the actual nationals. Not saying I would ever win nationals, but it just be something cool that I would personally love to experience at some point. So I'm hoping that this game's the Bandai can fix it, and turns out what would it be now for us, year 4 or 5?
this would be year. We're going on right now. We're on block 4, so this would be our 5th year. I'm not saying the game is gonna die by any stretch of the word. I think the game is still gonna be strong and going, and living on. But especially like considering if you look at something like Battle Spirits, like Bandai's continuing that in America or like everywhere else, and that game is barely alive. So like if Battle Spirits can live, Digimon definitely can live. It's just for me, my competitive drive would basically be non-existent because the game just would not make me really want to go out to play it. And that's why, like, if I were to like stop supporting the game and stop buying product, I probably would just play Huang's online simulator and just make content off of that, because one, that simulator is actually pretty well made, and games are pretty addictive when you actually like can just, hey, I want to play it again. Just let me hit that rematch, not really rematch, but repair button, and like you just hop in games in sometimes seconds if it decides it wants to work properly.
Yeah, I mean, I know I tried out Wong's simulator before and everything, and I kind of had to stop using it because I couldn't get the whole update thing figured. So I figured, okay, once he gets everything caught up to what it is, I'll try to get back on it. But I know for me, it's like I'm hoping year 5 is just gonna blow Digimon out of the water and just makes everyone go, hey, if you ever had doubts of the game, don't worry, we're fixing that stuff. That's what I'm hoping they could I'm just hoping that this announcement might be able to shine some light in the dark, I guess, so to say.
Yeah, give us a little bit of hope. Because right now, a lot of community members are kind of just hanging in, holding their breath, hoping that we actually get some good news so we could actually have that sigh of relief that the game is being managed properly and taken care of, even though I know the development teams on any of their games are really, really small. Like, they're probably not even 10-man teams. I can almost guarantee you that. Most of the time, card development, you'll work in very small teams.
Yeah, I'm just hoping, like, if anything, they can announce saying, "Oh, by this date, this is when we'll release another ban list. So hold out till then, guys."
Oh my god, if
You know,
they announce like scheduled ban lists so we stop guessing when they're going to do it, that would be so nice.
yeah, like just even having like, "Hey, just so you're aware, everyone, after Nats and Worlds, this is when we're going to do a ban list. We just want to see what decks are topping so we know what to go after." Something like that would just be enough and go, "Yep, that's good job, Bandai. You don't need to say anything else. I'm good. I'm satisfied."
Yeah. No, they have a lot to prove in a short amount of time. Kind of feels almost like I'm back at work, where my company just messed up really badly, and they have a lot to prove in a short amount of time. And right now they're failing, and that's kind of where I feel like Bandai is failing me. So, Bandai, don't make me feel like I'm at work, please. But yeah, so not everything is all doom and gloom because we do have the holidays coming up, which is always fun. I hope everyone took advantage of Black Friday and bought whatever product that they needed to, or whatever singles they did. I tried to buy a couple of semi-expensive singles to complete my playset collection of SRs and above. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, so the holidays come with a new event. This is, as I kind of alluded to before, a singleton event. So your deck, let me actually pull up the event itself. I should have done that before while I was on the world page. So let's go to events. Holiday winter event. Here we go. All right, let's pull this bad boy up. So the holiday winter event, it starts in, as I scroll down, December 6th. So literally this weekend, as of the recording of this video. And it lasts until January 31st. So you got plenty of time to be able to participate. As far as the prizing goes, it is going to be just like last year, the adventure cast dressed up in Christmas outfits. And this time it's going to be the other 4 characters we didn't get from last year. So it's going to be Gatomon featuring Kari, Biomon featuring Sora, Palmon featuring Mimi, and Gomamon featuring Joe. As far as the specific versions, it is BT7 Goma, BT10 Pal, BT11 Bio, and BT16 Gato. Gato is the winner card, mind you that. So that's going to be the card you want to get. At least it'll be like special.
Sorry, I feel like the Gomamon would be really good, especially with the support for the fish that's coming out later, too.
It's already completely outclassed by what we already have, unfortunately.
True.
But the Palmon is still really good for Bloomlord, because that's the BT10 one. That's the Searcher for Plants and Fairies. And then Biomon from BT11 is, ironically enough, a good card, but having Sora be Akiho's Biomon is like kind of slightly awkward. I feel like that's a flavor fail, but they wanted something somewhat recent, and it's not like it's a bad card because it all kind of works with what the Biomon deck wanted to do anyway. So honestly, I think like out of all of these, the biggest winners to me is the Palmon and the Biomon. But that's just me personally. Not saying that Gatomon's not good. It's just, it's okay. That's kind of where I'll leave that. But as far as so those are the prizing. And as far as the actual format rules, so Where is the actual rules? That's just the format. Um, Players must construct a Highlander deck with specifications in mind. This means they can't have more than one copy of the card in their deck. Digi cards and main deck cards cannot contain more than one copy of the same card number. So you could have multiple different Koromons, it just can't be the same Koromon from the same set. So, like, I'm talking like, oh, this is BT9 Koromon. You can't have 4 BT9 Koromon. You can have 1 BT9 Koromon with that specific number. Then the cards will have up to... Oh, so the cards that can say that they can have up to 50 are also limited to 1. So basically like Vemon and Eosmon and Mother, or like Searcher, those are just limited to 1. And then banned cards are also not permitted. So limited cards are perfectly fine because they're limited to 1 and you can only have 1 copy of it anyway. But banned cards, which there's only 1 banned card in the entire game, you can't have that. So fair enough rules. So I guess this is the portion where we kind of just talk about what we think of the event in terms of like what decks are actually viable. For me, this is going to be a huge breath of fresh air, but I've been kind of struggling figuring out what I want to build and what I kind of am going to be making, because I also have a hard time personally making decks for literally one event. I hate doing it, but because where the current state of the game is, I'll probably suck it up for this one time. Well, not really one time, just as long as this event is being ran, just to be able to play like Digimon in a different capacity. I think like decks are going to have a lot lower consistency, and because it's Highlander, the idea is it's more random because it is 50 different singleton cards. So with that in mind, Jay Stewart, what decks do you actually think are going to be present in this type of event?
Well, I know you mentioned a few decks to me, but one deck that definitely stands out to me for sure is the Gallimon. I know that's one you talked about to me earlier, but I'm just thinking about the Guilmon and the Gallimon stuff. There is literally so much. You literally could just grab one of every single card and have almost a complete deck by itself with just 1 or 2 fillers here and there, honestly.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot of different support if you're going more so for the name support, because he was in a lot of different sets with full evolution lines. So you will have, like, if you're just going with like normal deck construction like ratios, you will have at least like 6 Guilmons, 6 Gallantmons, 6 of his full evolution line, so that could flesh out and make the majority of the deck, like you said, right then and there. Sure, you'll have like these awkward mismatching mechanics, but that's Gallantmon in a nutshell at this point, is just awkward mismatching mechanics. But they sometimes have some cohesion to them because they're still playing on the theme of deleting the opponent's Digimon. So that's definitely going to be a pretty good one. And based on like a little bit of Japanese data, because Japan did this first, Vemon is definitely going to be a deck to build. Like, more specifically, Imperial, because that evolution line has also gotten a metric butt ton of support, and you can even flesh out your Vemons and Wormmons to be able to make that deck even more consistent, compared to, like, every other, like, more specific archetype style deck. So
Yeah, because I feel like you could run the Vemon as technically 3 different ways. You could run it as the Imperial Dramon, the armor variant, because there is a lot of armors now, especially with the Wormmon too in BT16. Or you could run a mix of both of them, kind of like how Dan Vang was doing, too, theoretically.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be forced to use basically almost everything you got. So there will be a mix of some armors. There'll be a mix of, like, just a little bit of everything. So I think, like, just because that is one of the more supported archetypes, like, that's going to give those decks not only just easier deck building, but card pool in general, because you do have those native built-in synergies that are all kind of just working off of each other. And like that's going to be one of the big takeaways is like you're going to want to build towards those specific synergies, whether that's archetypical or mechanical. So that's going to be like mechanical ones are a little bit harder because there are going to be some more mismatches than an archetype would have. So, like, Agumon is obviously going to be the one a lot of people are going to flock to because that's just the obvious one because we've had so much Agumon support. Not only just from his baseline utilizing Tai, but we also have, like, Shine and his baseline. So, like, there's just a lot of Agumons in that archetype to be able to work with to flesh out a deck very easily just using that evolution line. Because you also have red, you have black, you have some name-based synergies. Like, there's a lot you can do. Especially since we're also getting the gem boosts at this time as well. So you could use that to your advantage to try to increase your deck's overall consistency. So, like, those consistency options between the memory boosts and the training cards are definitely going to be very important to want to include. And it's cool that we get to experiment with not having 8 memory boosts and training cards in our deck so we can actually leave space for more options, which will be nice.
You know, another good one that could actually theoretically be good is actually Machine Dramon, because they really do run a lot of different variant Cyborg Digimon and everything, if you run it the EX1 style, at least.
You could, and you could like, the only awkward part is not all the Machine Dramons are mechanically doing the same thing. So, like, the new wave of Machine Dramons, because we just got 2 of them, they're not doing the same thing as what the BT11 and BT or EX1 versions are doing. So, like, while you're still kind of banking on, like, the dream of seeing the perfect line. And I think that's going to be a little bit easier said than done, because if it's in your security and you just play a whole bunch of searching tools, and you could potentially still just never find the one card that you actually need. But, like, that's where you do have the flexibility where you could dedicate some of your deck to that type of a strategy while also still kind of dedicating your deck to a little bit of what the composite stuff is doing as well. So, like, you could splash in a little bit of Chimeramon that does have an on-delete effect to play a Machine Dramon from your trash. So you do have some flexibility there. It's not going to be 100% cohesive, but that's the whole point of the format, is to have more randomness to it and not be cohesive. But speaking of cohesiveness, there are a couple of other decks that I wanted to highlight. One of them being red hybrids. So the big difference is Japan had this format before we did. So a lot of stuff from theirs will translate over to here. But one thing that's going to be more so unique to ours is red hybrids, because we do have a lot of red hybrid support and synergies, enough so to actually make a full deck out of, because you do have 6 tamers with inheritables that are hybrids, and then you could subsidize whatever else out with good generic tamers like Tai, like Owen, like Hero. So there is enough room for a full-blown red hybrid deck, because we do have a lot of red hybrid tools.
Well, if you even also consider the 2.0 and everything cards as well, because we have the Susanoo stuff where one set of the hybrids are dedicated going up the Emperor line and the other going up the Lobo line. Because I know the, the little snowball bear guy and the Berrymon, or I don't think that's... Yeah, Kuma and whatever. Like,
Kuma
those ones are also...
Yeah.
Like, those ones are also red now, too, so you could throw those in the deck as well.
As well as Kazimon, and you do have their Ancients as well. And you're also not color-locked in this event, so if you do have transition points, you could also use off-theme megas. and you do just have other like generically good red cards that you could think about splashing into the deck to spice it up as well. That's kind of the beauty of it, is you just have a lot that you can work with because it is singleton. So, you got any other deck ideas? Because I got a ton still.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to, like, it's hard to think of it right now until, like, I start hearing you talk about it, unfortunately.
Yeah, so here's one that's probably close to your heart. Black X Antibody.
Okay, I'm listening.
So, Alphamon has gotten a whole bunch of support, and his line is the Doru line, which has two alternative like megas. So you have Alphamon, you have Dorugoromon, you have Dex Dorugoromon. You could even subsidize it with like Oriyumon, because we do have two Oriyumons. Everything is just Black X Antibody, so it all kind of just works. So you could easily flesh out like a deck utilizing almost nothing but Black X antibodies. Then you could play both of the X antibody cards. You could play a little bit of Zubagon Punch just to have that extra punch factor, as well as like all of the black consistency tools. So
I mean, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, you got Alphamon or you got Alphamon or Yukin as a good level 7. Don't expect to go up into it and have it be as effective as its own dedicated deck, but hey, you have two Oriyumons, so it's more plausible.
Yeah. Well, and there's even like a deck back in BT16 that I really wish I had played, but I didn't. I chickened out to play the Justmon. But there's like back in BT6, there was a Black Royal Knight deck that was utilizing the BT6 Alphamon from that, in combination with like a lot of other ones. So I wonder if even a deck like that might even be able to come back, since we have a lot more Royal Knight support too.
Maybe. Like, yeah, there's still just, you could even use that as like the transition point to Black Royal Knights and run like some sister mons as well. So like there is just a ton of flexibility that you could have.
Yeah, because I know like what is, I talked about it and I couldn't think of what the name was. It Cradlemon or Craniumon?
Yeah, you have Craniumon, you have Genkumon. So
Alphamon, and then
yeah, Alphamon. But they have multiple evolution lines. So like usually if you're just going with like normal stack ratios, you wouldn't want to run more than like 6 or 7 level 6s anyway. So like there is enough there to be able to make like Black Royal Knights work as a good top end, and then just play like generically good black cards that don't really have much to do other than good inheritables or good tempo efficiency. So that's something. And speaking of like interesting deck builds, I know that a lot of the non-conventional decks are for the most part kind of just dead. So like no D-Reaper, no Royal Knight in terms of like Yggdrasil. Then there's also going to be no 7 Great Demon Lords. But one style of deck that you could kind of lean heavily into is the combination of Sovereigns and Dark Masters, and have like this weird amalgamation of like Ace Megazoo that also happens to have Apocalypse, that also happens to have Fanglong. So like you do have the Sovereigns, there's a lot of Sovereigns, they already like different Sovereigns, and kind of the same thing with like the Dark Masters level 5s and level 6s. So like, and then you just play like whatever good aces you feel like you want on top of that. And I think like that could be a really interesting and fun deck to build towards.
Yeah, because I could definitely see Dark Masters as well. Kind of like the same idea I was thinking with the Machine Dramon as well, because they really do have a good amount of decent tools to help build that trash that they need to with the rare mons, or even a lot of those level 5s back in BT15 too.
Yeah. Um, and the fact that there's a lot of like good on play synergy leans heavily into what's his face Apocalypse wants to do, and that could be really fun. Then you could just customize the tamers with whatever tamers you want. Same thing with the options. It really just opens you up to whatever like low end engine that you want to be able to help facilitate what the deck is trying to do. And that's kind of what like the name of the game is gonna be, is just, hey, how do I make my deck feel as consistent as possible? And another deck that accomplishes that pretty well is Yellow Vaccines, because obviously there's a lot of yellow vaccines. Not only just in the Patamon line, but like you have the Gatomon line, you have Shine Greymon, you have Armors. Like there's a lot of yellow vaccine related cards. Then you get some like absolutely broken ace Digimon, on top of the fact that you could also use Shine Greymon. Every deck can use Death X technically. And then you also get, because a lot of your high level Digimon could be two colors, you also could build towards what's its face? God. Ultimate Chaosmon. And you could do that the same with the Fanglong and Apocalypse build, is you could also utilize a card like Ultimate Chaosmon as a good level 7. So there's a lot of fun to be had there.
Here's an interesting deck I just thought of. What about the Commandramon deck? Because I know there's like not a crazy amount of the level 3s, but there's a decent amount to build a rookie base, and they do have the evolution lines. So you hopefully could make something out of that too.
I think Commandramon, yeah, you do have 3 full evolution lines, and then I think there's like what, 4 or 5 different Commandramons. So you'd have to find
I
some
think
way
there's
to
6 or
subsidize
7.
it. There could be, because I know there was BT3, BT like 1 starter deck, BT14, BT6. That's already
EX4.
5. Yeah, EX4. So you got like 6 Commandramon. Yeah, you got like 6 Commandramons you could work with. So that's already half your rookies like prepped for you. Throw in a couple of floodgates, that's already an extra 3. So you just need 3 extra rookies, and then your rookie count's good. And then you
And you
could
can
flesh
even
out the level 4s with some Digipolice.
yeah.
So yeah, you can make something like Commandramon work.
And even getting to utilize like a lot of the good black base cards too and everything as well. Like Cyberdramon Ace, for example, as one, or even like Seraphimon, Shadow Seraphimon, sorry, as another example.
Yeah. I know I've seen um like that's, yeah, there's a lot. Going back on the yellow hype train, or like not necessarily hype train, but the idea of hybrids, like blue and yellow technically do have the next level of support, so you could also lean heavier into blue and yellow hybrids. And yellow hybrids does have a unique advantage of being able to use Marcus a little bit easier. So you could build like yellow Marcus hybrids, just to help flesh out numbers and act as extra tamers to punch. I'm trying to think of like what else would be good. I know purple piles is always going to be good. Like just play the best purple cards that fit with a particular mechanic, either mill or draw and discard. So like you could do an Itmon style deck, because there's a lot of good Itmon based cards and a lot of easy ways to self mill and trash yourself. So that could be something fun that people could lean to. Or you could do like draw and discard, because there's a lot of that as well. You could even do like retaliation. So purple is easily one of the most mechanically rich colors in the game. So you could just literally pick whatever purple cards, like whatever 50 purple cards you want, shove it into a deck, and it'll most likely just work.
Just out of curiosity, would a Cryptart be I feel like Crossfire has a decent amount of support to maybe get a ball rolling, but I'm not sure if they do. Like, is Crossfire on the table for that potentially?
Crossheart kind of is because like your end goal would be that much better you if you're able to get into Cross 7 Superior as like a really good mid to late game card because everything is singleton, so you'll be able to cross to basically make him free if there's enough cards. So I think that could be pretty cool.
And even getting the material saved so you could keep using those cards that are 1-0s and everything as well. It's like I feel like the Shalmon, there's like at least three that have the rush inheritable by itself and everything. I feel like.
I think there is. It's either two or three, but you do have consistency there, and then you also do technically have some of the hunter stuff that you could lean into as well. Just because they all play with the save mechanic, so like that's where like you take an idea and you finish like if there's not enough there, you'd probably finish it with something that's mechanically similar. So even though not everything would be technically be Crossheart, you could put in some blue flares to flesh it out. You could put in some of the hunter cards and hunter tamers to flesh it out. And there's just a lot of different things that you could do based on the richness of the mechanic of save and digicross and build towards that overall strength. But I think there
Here's
should
even
be
another
enough.
one.
Yeah, I think there should just be enough cross hearts to actually make a deck.
I feel like there definitely is enough cards to make a Dark Knight slash Bargra army deck as well too.
There's less of that, but
Really?
yes, there is a lot less Bagra army stuff, but it's possible. I'm not going to discount it and say it's not because again, you could lean into purple save cards, which definitely can help flesh it out, and then you also have the black U that you could run to make sure that you have more name consistency. Um, so like it's still possible. Just as far as Bagra army is concerned, there's just not as many.
Yeah, they do really heavily rely on the purple U. Now
Yeah,
that I think about that.
yeah. This is purple. I'm just looking at some of the Japanese data. Purple piles. I already mentioned the Megazoo style decks. I'm just seeing if there's anything else. I mean, there's probably just more than what we're even like thinking about. So like plants, fairies, and vegetations, I think has enough to make a deck out of. Um,
Yeah.
Blue piles probably has enough where you're just focused on like jamming or draw or just good blue cards. Garurumon might have enough. You might have to flesh him out a little bit with like something else, but Garurumon,
Gabubon maybe.
yeah, like that's where you could just find some creative liberties to round out the decks.
I feel like
Um,
there's also a. Oh Jesus! I just had that two in my head. The Aqua. There's also like a. I think there's a good amount of like the Aqua cards and even Insectoid cards to even just run those as 1-0s as well potentially maybe.
yeah, those don't seem bad either. Like they're very like trait-based archetypes being as wide as they are usually are probably going to be some of the better ones than name-based ones unless like you know for a fact that the name-based one is like actually going to be well supported. Because I think like Rapidmon is another really good one where it's like there's a lot of good Lotmon and Terriermon cards, and you could take it in the direction of Alliance, you could take it in the direction of Suspend My Opponent's cards, and like already a couple of different tools that you could use to flesh it out. It definitely has enough tamers between Henry, Willis, and Susie. So, like Lotmon, Terriermon, Cherubimon, that could be fun. Um, I know Gamamon has a ton of level fives, so like maybe you could do something with Gamamon because the level fives will all spread towards each other. So it's like, oh yeah, I just need a level 5 and I should be okay. And Like, obviously, you could try to lean towards red as a color more specifically, but the fact that you do have just a decent amount of cards that you could play around with is pretty cool. Because I think, like, just between Arcturus and then we have, like, 3 different Sirius Mons, that already makes up the majority of what your level 6 lineup would look like. So you just, we already know there's a ton of level 5s, so level 5s are covered. So you just have to worry about level 4s and level 3s. So Gamamon might have enough support to get there. So we're just all here spitballing examples. I don't know what else to kind of like, maybe birds, like birds as a deck or fortitude or something. I don't know.
I feel like there might be enough Leo cards out there to get something going for that.
Leo's a little bit hard because
Like
he's been spread out between colors too much. Like, that's kind of one thing you want to try to avoid is like spreading yourself thin on colored support. So like if you could try to stick to what the deck's colors are and what your main colors are, I probably would. So like Agumon I know has like a whole bunch of black cards, but like the majority of his good cards are in red. So if you could avoid the black Agumon cards, I probably would. Maybe yellow puppets. Like,
yeah. Or even the Vortex deck and everything, because they use a lot of avian green cards too.
Yeah, so like you could try fleshing it out with that. Like it's just these types of like, most of the time what I do is, yes, I look at Japanese data, but I'll literally stare at a database and like think what deck has enough cards to be able to support this type of idea. So that's usually my approach to how I would go about busting into this event with a deck. This kind of gave me some extra ideas. Like, I didn't even think about puppets. Maybe I actually have to try that out. Between like Shin Manzemon. Yeah. You also have like the Manzemon stuff, like Shin Manzemon and whatnot. So maybe that could be pretty good. Because I've been kind of struggling myself on figuring out what deck that I want to build and play. Because like I said, like I'm literally just going to be using it for this event series. And there's a high chance that I'm just never going to touch the deck again. And then I have to de-sleeve it. I have to re-put all the cards in the right place. And it's just a big hassle for me. So that's why I generally don't like doing these types of events. But I'm not against it, especially for where the current game is. So I hope this at least gave you some ideas too, Jay Stewart. I don't know what you're thinking about playing.
Theoretically, there is enough out there to make an X-Antibody deck, especially if I throw in the whole Oriumon stuff and everything as well.
Yeah. I mentioned that earlier, that might be the one that you would be interested in building the most because that just aligns with you as a player. I still got to figure out what I want. The majority what I'm going to end up doing is probably just look through my like binders and let's see what kind of bulk cards I have extra of that I could just like take out and just use without like any fear of putting them back in a particular place. So maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe it's also an excuse to deconstruct some decks. So I'm sitting on, what is this in front of me? I think this is my Manzemon deck. Yeah, this is Manzemon. So maybe this gives me an excuse to deconstruct Manzemon and take it apart and combine it for puppets. Now that I was thinking about that, I'm like, that might not be a bad idea. I gotta see what other puppet level 6s there are. That's where databases come in.
Yeah, I feel like there is a good amount of like puppet trait Digimon and everything because, like, I think there's a good amount of like dark animals.
Oh, dark animals! Yes, purple dark animals.
Yeah, because like you have the Lugamon line that's dark animal.
And yeah, and you could subsidize it with yeah, and you could subsidize it with undead because like the BT9 stuff works with like undead and dark animals.
Yeah, and guess what also is undead? The Dextorogoromon and everything.
Yeah. So that's definitely another avenue in which you could try to build a deck. Like the point is that we're getting is there's a lot of really good cards that aren't necessarily being used that now would be able to see some use in a very interesting format where things are going to be a little bit on the slower side, and that can be pretty fun and interesting space to explore what's possible with this new rule set and kind of breathe some fresher air into the game is how I'll nicely put it. So that way we could all just try to enjoy what we have, and find different ways to play the game. Not that like the game is that bad. It's just because obviously you could just play like lower tier decks or whatever. It's just I would prefer to have something slightly different, just enough of a taste in the teaser to mix things up.
Well, because I know like you could theoretically play something lower tier, but I know at my locals there is some people that are, like I've mentioned, Dom, who's going to be going to Nats. Like he's going to want to practice, and he, with people on meta decks and everything. So he's not going to necessarily go, he's going to want to try to use this time to practice, especially since there's not really a lot of big tournaments out there that he can participate in.
Yeah, I think for North America, until Nats, we have 2 Ultimate Cups left. Ultimate Cups usually have lower attendance rates compared to regionals because you don't have the prestige of a nationals invite. And I know I'm participating in Carta this weekend. I don't remember if I signed up for the one on the 14th, which is next weekend. I have that day off of work in case I want to, but I don't remember if I'm signed up or not. But if I'm not, there's probably no real reason for me to do it because, well, I mean, the practice is nice, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I don't know. I already know what deck I'm going to be bringing, but I don't necessarily know if I need practice on it. If that gives it away.
Yeah, because I mean, there's nothing wrong with going with something that you're used to and knowing of for Nats, especially if it's still theoretically good. I mean, I have an idea what you could probably be playing based off that comment, but I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with the idea of what you're thinking. It's like the decks in and out. You already know what's good against, what it's good against, what its matchups are, and everything. So why even try struggling learning a whole new deck when you could just keep perfecting what you already know?
Right. People will probably say, "Oh, he's playing Mirage then." And I'm just like, "Well, I mean, I could, but that's also where the simulator comes in. It helps me test as well. So that way I'm not like super worried about losing out on in-person practice." Is kind of where I was going with that. So there's different avenues to be able to test if I really wanted to. But hopefully this helps you figure out what you wanted Jay Stewart to play for these types of events. I'm still trying to figure out what I want. Like I said, I'll just look at my binders and see what I can just scrounge up. And yeah, that's for the most part kind of just it. So hopefully this helped you, the listener / viewer, figure out any ideas that you would want for this type of event, just because it is different than your normal Digimon event. So hopefully your store is running it so that way you could build a deck and participate and experience the game in a slightly different manner than what you're used to. So with that, I want to probably close things out and say thank you everyone for coming out and listening. It always means the absolute worlds to me knowing that we're over 80 episodes strong in this new iteration of the podcast, because I was doing it with my very first co-host under a different name. He had control of it, and yeah, so I had to kind of like soft reboot it to what it is currently. So thank you all again for listening. Don't forget to do all of the social media doobly-doos to help support the podcast. And with that, I hope to see you all next time. Later.